Hi, my name is Dr. Harry Canassa and I will be your lecturer for 7079 and the lab tutor up at Mount Gravatt, while Gordon Powell will be the lab tutor on the Gold Coast campus. But before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the Yugambeh and the Yugambeh, the traditional custodians of the lands on which our campuses reside, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So you can see here on the map the language groups within the southeast corner of Brisbane. So you can see the Yugambeh people there in the green, which is where our Mount Gravatt campus is, and the Yugambeh down here in the Gold Coast region. If we zero in on the Yugambeh, here I've marked the location of our two campuses on which I teach, and you can see there that the Gold Coast campus actually resides within Coombie country. So that's why Griffith does a lot of work with the Coombie people in terms of bringing Indigenous knowledges into our courses. And that's actually the focus of one of the lectures later on in this course. Okay? But first, let's take a tour of the course by taking a tour of learning at Griffith. So I'll just jump out of there and then come into Chrome. So when you splash down in Learning at Griffith, you'll come across the announcements. So any important information will be pushed out through here. Okay? Now, another important area is the course content. Within the course content area, you'll find this handy dandy table. So it tells you what we're doing in the recorded lectures. So those are for you to watch in your own time and take your own notes. And then here's what we're doing in the lab. So what we're doing in the lab in the first hour and second hour. In this fourth column, you can see that I've indicated where you've got the various assessment pieces. There's also a note there about the course text. It's this one here, the Beginnings Teacher's Guide Companion. It is awesome. Okay, there are a whole bunch of learning tools. There's information on lesson planning, differentiation, catering to different needs, all within this textbook. So it's something I highly, highly recommend that you do purchase because it is useful beyond university. Okay. Now, I'm going to introduce you to another major component of this course, which is use of OneDrive and cloud-based technology. Okay. So I'm here in my OneDrive, so log in like you normally would. And if you click on the 3x3 grid up the top here, you'll open up this panel. And if you come down to Teams, it will take you obviously into your Teams section. Okay, so depending on how many other teams you belong to, 7079 EDN 2019 is the one that you want. Now, by default, you land in the conversations page. So this is where I'm going to encourage you to ask questions and things like that. Files, as the name suggests, this is where I'll be uploading files through the course. And the lab material that we'll be working on will be dealt with by the lab notebook, which is a OneNote notebook over here. So the first lab that we'll be doing this week is pendulum swing. So once you get in here, what I recommend that you do is that you open it in OneNote on your desktop. OneNote on the online version is a little bit dodgy and it's more stable when you're working on it in the actual desktop application. Okie-dokie. Okay, so let's come back to the presentation and let's keep going. Okay. So the model of learning that's being used in this course and is actually being pushed out university-wide is what's called flipped learning. Now, it does require a certain level of academic maturity and also organisational skills because it flips the learning in terms of instead of coming to uni and sitting in a lecture and just getting talked at and then you go home and you apply, well, we actually reverse that. We provide the learning material so you engage with it at that lower level, understanding the material at home in your own time, and then in the times that we do meet, we'll actually unpack that material, answer any questions, dig deeper into the material. Okay? So that time that you have with us at uni in terms of learning material is much, much more effective because we're working at higher levels when it comes to the material. Here's some advice on how to get the most out of these lectures because I'm going to guess it's a new way of learning for many of you. Okay? Now, advice number 1, schedule a time with no distractions to watch the lectures. Don't do other stuff while you're watching the lectures. We know humans think they are quite good at multitasking. That's actually a myth. Okay? At various points during the lectures, I will be suggesting learning tools that will help you unpack the content. So be aware for those. Okay? Another important point for you to get the most out of lectures is to use the learning objectives to focus in on the content. Okay? They are the second slide of every lecture, and I'll be talking more about those as we actually get into the lectures. If you have any questions, I highly recommend that you then post those to the team site so we can all join in the conversation. The discussion board in Learning Griffith is a little bit clunky, and so we're going to use that feature within Teams. Okay? In terms of handwritten versus typed notes, that is up to you. Now, there is some evidence which is coming out that's showing that handwriting your study notes are a more effective way of actually learning material. I'm going to leave that up to you. Okay? Rightio. The last thing that I want to do in this introduction is just to explain to you the rationale of how this entire course is put together. Okay? So there were 2 main ideas which guided the construction of this course. They are the TPAC model, which is the topic of your first assignment, and also constructivism and active learning. Okay? So let's talk about each one of those and why they are important. So when we have a look at the TPAC model, what the TPAC model really is saying is to be the triple threat in teaching, you need to know your stuff, which is the content, the blue circle. You need to know how to teach it, the yellow circle, or pedagogical knowledge. And you need to know the tools and how to use the tools to achieve your learning objectives. That's the pink circle. When you combine all of those 3 elements together, your content knowledge, your knowledge of how to teach, and your knowledge of the learning tools, then we call that the TPAC. So the purpose of this course is to make you the triple threat of teaching. Know your stuff, know how to teach it, and know the right tools to use. Now, the last principle that I want to get across to you is that of constructivism and active learning. Now, when I was in your position, my chemistry lecturer, Professor Warren Beasley, he was very fond of saying, pretty much said it every single tutorial, was that students do the work and you get paid. My current colleague who I work with in the STEAM techie, she's very much fond of saying, if you're working harder than your students, you're doing it wrong. That's because the responsibility of learning is with the learner. We as teachers are merely here to facilitate. So when we have a look at how constructivists conceive of learning, they say that learning is an active process where the individual or group, when we're talking about social constructivism, where we take new bits of knowledge and we figure out how, not only how they're connected to each other, but how they're connected to what we already know. Okay? So we help students find those connections by giving students learning tools to process, to understand, to analyze, evaluate, to create, thereby literally constructing their new knowledge. So if you think of knowledge as a web, okay, so if you don't know a lot about a topic, then your web of knowledge is kind of limited and small. But as you become more expert, that network grows and grows and grows, and the complexity of the connections also grows. So that's where constructivism comes in. Excellent. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in lectures and also in the labs.